Welcome to Real Estate Milestones, where we explore fascinating topics in commercial real estate with knowledgeable industry experts. I'm your host, Ben Malik, and I'm a young real estate professional who is passionate about adding value to people's lives through the incredible power of real estate. My goal is to help you discover what the heck is going on in the industry and how you can get involved. This is Real Estate Milestones, where your future in real estate lies just around the corner.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Real Estate Milestones. Today we have Whitney Sewell, who is a daily podcast host, which is the first thing that I find super impressive about his business. But he's also a philanthropist and a real estate investor with a really unique take and way of investing and with a really unique vision. So I'm excited to have Whitney on the show today. Thanks for coming.
My pleasure, Ben. Honored to be here.
Great. So I guess the main reason, or one of the biggest reasons why I'm excited to chat today is because you know why you're doing what you're doing. So I just wanted to start there. Why? I guess can you tell us a little bit about your business and the mission and why you come to work every day?
I can. It is something that has separated us, and being honestly, it was something that I didn't plan it to happen this way, but I started seeing it working, and the Lord had a different plan for our business, and so we've run with it. But early on in our marriage, I'll share some personal things here that really led up to this mission, and then happy to dive into how that's helped our business in a big way, because it has. So early on in our marriage, we were listening to a pastor talk, and he was talking about caring for orphans and widows, and was talking about how he and his wife had adopted a child or two. And my wife and I grew up in a one-stoplight town. We had never met anybody that had adopted or been adopted. I mean, it was not even on our radar whatsoever. But on our way home from this event, all we could do is ask ourselves is, why would we not adopt? Because he shared about the need. I mean, 150 million orphans in the world. All these things, right? It's like, okay, well, we can bring a child home. It's like we can do that. And so it seems so simple to us, and I'm really thankful for our ignorance in the process. But within a week, we turned our application to adopt from Ethiopia. And then 2 years later, our first son, Samuel, came home from Ethiopia. 9 or 10 months later, my second son came home through adoption, Elijah. And then it was probably 3 years later, 3 or 4 years later, our daughter, Eden Joy, also came to our family through adoption. And so it was a big financial struggle for us, though, early on, to be able to afford to adopt. And we're talking like $40,000 to $60,000 or more to bring a child home through adoption. And oftentimes that's more than what people make in a year, right? And so the more I've talked about this from many stages, people say, Whitney, that's more than I make in a year. We'd love to bring a child home, but how can we even start that process, right? And so, but because of those struggles early on, when we started the real estate business, we said, you know what, we're going to commit in a big way to helping as many families to bring children home through adoption. And so we committed half of our personal profits from our real estate business to a foundation that we started. It's called the Omnah Foundation. But through Omnah, we committed half of our personal profits. I think we've partnered with 21 or 2 families now who have actually brought children home. I just had a meeting before this where we're partnering with, I think, 4 or 5 more this week. And so because of that, it's like, man, so many other families are affected, right? And children's lives are affected for generations to come, because of what the Lord's doing through our business. But because of that that mission, like I said, I didn't know how that was going to take an effect in our business. But I want you to ask any questions about this, because I'm so passionate about it as well. But because of that mission, it's helped us to hire people, great people, right? That it doesn't make sense that these people want to work for us, but they want to be a part of our mission, right? That investors that want to partner with us because of our mission, right? They want a great return. We still have to perform, but however, they love working with somebody that's not just focused on, finding their next mansion, right? Or car that they're buying, right? They love being a part of that mission, even though it doesn't affect their returns at all. And many of them have also, partnered with the foundation personally as well. But even deeper than that, Ben, when we first started, you talked about the podcast. Man, it was so difficult for us early on. Doing a daily podcast, I was still working full time. I started traveling to all kinds of conferences. We were in the process of an adoption process too. We moved. It was chaos, to say the least. However, it was that mission that kept my family like united and pushing forward towards the goal, even when it was absolute chaos in the home, trying to keep all these things going.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. That's a beautiful story, and want to learn much more about how it all came together. So I guess to start, well, I guess let's start with what's your first milestone in real estate? Because that's the question we always ask on the show. But if you want to kind of show how that first milestone in real estate might have led up to real estate becoming a part of your mission, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So in 2009, I'll back up a little bit. In March of 2001, I joined the military. And I had no idea, obviously, 6 months later that our nation would be attacked, right? And I'd be going to war. But, shortly after that, sure enough, I found myself spending a year in Iraq. It was a time of, a lot of learning, to say the least, the hard way. But I learned a lot, right? But one thing the military taught me was to have a never give up mentality. So, however, when I came home from the military, and unfortunately, not everybody made it home, right? It's just, it's a tough time. But we got home, and I tried to figure out, what am I going to do now as a career? I had no college. I thought, what am I even qualified to do? And one thing was become a police officer. I loved the uniform, the structure, the discipline, from military. Became a police officer, and I got hired with Kentucky State Police. It was one out of, I think there was 5 openings for like 12 out of 1,200 people, and I was blessed to have one of them. However, while I loved being a first responder and loved doing that, a few years into that, I get married, actually early on, but a few years later, I figure out, okay, well, my wife and I just passed each other in the hallway the first whole year of marriage. And I'm like, okay, well, as much as I enjoy this is just not what is best. And so I'm working all the overtime I can possibly work, still making $35,000 a year less, and trying to figure out, what am I going to do here, And so I thought, okay, I always heard about, or maybe not always even, I didn't grow up in a family of entrepreneurs or anything like that, but I knew that real estate had built wealth for many people, right? And I just knew that, and I started looking into it a little bit, and I figured out, okay, wait a minute, if I could get just 1 or 2 rentals, maybe we can make a few extra $100 a month like that. This was like 2008 and 9 now, and I was making such little money that I didn't even know there was a crash at that time, like there was an issue, it didn't affect me. But I thought, okay, if we could just get in a couple of $100 extra a month, that would be a big deal for us, right, at that time. And so I thought, okay, let's do it, right? I read Rich Dad Poor Dad amongst a number of other books, but we bought 2 triplexes in 2009, and it was the beginning of a lot of lessons. Let's say that. And I learned a lot the hard way. That was our biggest milestone. I would say we were still very newlywed. And I was working at night as a police officer, and I was managing these 2 triplexes during the day, right? It was not in the best part of town, lots of deferred maintenance, a lot of, looking back, I can see a ton of mistakes I made, obviously during the buying process and due diligence and all that stuff that we could go into. But that was a major milestone, because we did keep it going. We didn't make any money, but we didn't lose any money other than just the brain damage. But I also say that one of the things I lost that was most valuable was all the precious time with my new bride, because I was so consumed with these apartments. However, I would say we didn't quit there. I became a federal agent. We moved to Virginia, and it was many years later. I say many. It was 8 or 9 years later, I guess, that I actually had another business in addition to the federal agent position. And again, we said, you know what? We know this is not what's going to build wealth for us. I was actually a professional horse trainer, and we sold the farm. We sold the farm so we could commit to commercial real estate, because I knew that was going to be the path to build wealth. And that's ultimately what we did. The big milestone, though, was those triplexes. And that was, when I say the apartments, even that term, my wife and I cringe, we think of those 2 triplexes. But there were so many lessons learned there, right? I'm thankful we did that. It made us stronger, no doubt about it. And I'm thankful that, we didn't just throw the towel in on real estate altogether.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you didn't throw the towel in as well. Did you use VA loans, or I guess that's only for owner occupied? But I find that such an interesting, powerful tool for people who have military experience.
Great question. I've used VA loans on personal residences since then, but I did not on those 2 triplexes. Believe it or not, I didn't know what syndication was. I didn't know anything about that, but I did have an investor on those triplexes because I didn't have the down payment, right? And so I actually met somebody that partnered with me on those triplexes. He did get everything that was promised to him, for sure. But that was how we made that happen. And looking back, I look back at that now and I think, man, what was that banker thing? Why did he give me a loan on that? It makes no sense, looking back. But I'm thankful that it turned out as good as it did.
Yeah, absolutely. And was that at I guess, was the market already on its way down or bottoming out, or just did you buy it at maybe not the opportune time? Like, 'cause it could be the best purchase opportunity ever or the worst.
Yeah, it wasn't the best. We'll say it wasn't maybe the worst, but it wasn't the best, that's for sure. I didn't get a deal.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, that's awesome. That's a great start. I'm glad it's scaled up from there. But yeah, I guess to take it back, where I guess you've come very far. Where is your business now? And I guess I'm really curious, where was the moment where you decided to go all in and kind of wrap in your mission into your business?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I briefly said there that I was a professional horse trainer, right? And so ultimately during that time, I was a federal agent during the day. I would come home and ride horses until midnight, most nights giving lessons. And I was selling horses for more money than I ever imagined. I was doing clinics all over the country, teaching hundreds of people at a time, horsemanship skills and doing tricks and all kinds of crazy stuff that I just never imagined. I mean, it was kind of like this childhood dream, right? To be able to do that. However, my wife and I were walking on the beach one fall, and we asked ourselves a question, is what we're doing right now going to get us where we want to go 5 years from now, or even 10 years from now? The obvious answer was no. It was obvious it was not going to do that. But one thing, I felt led when I had the horse training business, to give half our profits away, and I didn't do it. And so, when we started the real estate business, actually, we came home from that beach trip. That's when we committed to sell the farm. And we said, you know what, we're going to do it. We're going to commit half of our profits to the commercial real estate business. And the Lord's really blessed that. I mean, we have grown so quickly since then. You said something about, highlight into what we're doing right now. I mean, yes, 450 million in assets and 1,500 units. And I mean, it's happened in just a few years, 60 plus employees now. And so it's happened fast. And I don't think it would have happened without the commitment, like you just talked about, and the mission behind the business.
Absolutely. And so in terms of the mission and the relationship and how it helps you in your business, I guess something that I maybe probably wouldn't be the case, but has the philanthropic aspect of your business ever been a hindrance or something that maybe discouraged people from investing? Or I guess in terms of having less working capital to reinvest in the business, is that ever a concern? But I guess, like, how do you approach that problem in terms of like finding the balance for both? And I guess maybe the answer is simple, and that it's just, the mission's the most important thing, but I'm curious just how you make it work.
I've had one investor ever say, well, I don't really want to be a part of that, right? Or, our mission or whatever. And I would say that's okay. If they, you know what I mean? They're not our investor, if they don't, if they are bold enough to say, I don't want to be a part of the adoption fund, the foundation or anything like that. And they're not really a part of it outside, individually, right? It's because of the finances that we're making personally that are committed to the foundation. So I would say, we talk about being able to invest back in the business. So it's, and I get that question sometimes. So it's from my personal profits. So it's not from, like, say, the top line of Lightbridge Capital, right? And so the business does have to operate, right? We do have to function, or else there won't be funds to give to the foundation or anything else. So that has to happen, and that's why it's half of my personal profits. And so I don't require that of all of our employees or partners or things like that, but it's me personally, that does that. And that's how, obviously, the business has to keep, like I said, it has to keep operating.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's powerful in terms of being able to hire people, given that people, when you sit down in a meeting, or like, why do you come to work every day? You know what you're doing, like, why you're doing it. I guess could you speak to, it sounds like you've grown your business from not just from an assets perspective, but from a personnel perspective. And I'm kind of curious, can you give the bigger picture of your business in terms of how the different parts operate and how, maybe the mission helps in that regard as well?
Of course. So of course we have LifeBridge Capital, then we also have LifeBridge Management, and there's probably 45 to 50 employees under LifeBridge Management right now, which we've grown and hired all of them within the last year, 12 to 15 months now. But then LifeBridge Capital, there's 10 of us roughly, and then every one of them though that we've hired, when we've hired them during the interview process, with me saying nothing about it, every one of them has said something about being a part of our mission, right? They already knew that about us, right? And they loved that and they wanted to be a part of that, or they had a personal connection to it in some way, right? And I think that also happens with many of our investors, right? There's some kind of personal connection to adoption or children or whatever it may be, and they want to partner with us, because of that. But like I said, on the growth side, they all wanted to be a part of that, like all of our team members, right? They all knew that up front. And a few of them, like they could have worked for anybody probably in our industry, but they chose to work for us because of that mission.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so being a podcast host, I've definitely listened to many of your episodes of your podcast. I really admire what you do. I love your style and ability to conduct a conversation. But I think the most impressive thing is having a daily podcast, given that I have a weekly podcast, and that's already a good amount of work. So first, I want to hear, what's the motivation for starting the podcast, and kind of, it sounds like from the gun you were going daily, but I guess, what are the struggles in doing a daily podcast? How do you make it work in your business? And kind of just want to hear the story of, starting one of the leading podcasts in the space.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Well, when I started, ultimately I found a mentor, right? And that mentor also had a daily podcast most of us would know about. And at that time, it was as simple for me as, okay, I can see what it's done for his business. Let's go figure out how to do it. And it was almost that simple. Maybe that seems silly, but it really was like, okay, that's where I'm trying to go. Let's go make that happen, right? Let's go figure out how to do that, right? It's done it for him. Let's go. I can do it. I'll figure it out, right? I had almost never spoken into a microphone before, but we figured it out, right? And so I immediately built a team of virtual assistants from all over the world that helped me to do different parts of the podcast, right? We did that. We made almost 200 shows that way. Then we switched to a production company that couldn't keep up, honestly. Then we switched to another production company. Then I eventually brought it back in-house. We built our own team of virtual assistants again. I thought we could do a better job, do it faster, and probably cheaper as well. And then something happened I didn't expect. Well, a number of other people started asking us to produce their show. And so now we just kind of started our own little brand of podcast production. We're producing a number of people's shows now, in our industry and some in other industries also. And so the hardest, you talked about a struggle though, one of the hardest things has been just keeping up, right? Like one of the hardest things is finding enough guests to do 30 a month, right? Especially early on. I mean, I used to do 12 to 15 interviews every Monday, every other Monday. My team knew that we had to record at least 12 to 15 interviews. And it was just back to back to back to back, as hard as I could go. My wife would call it my marathon day. She would literally fix me lunch to go to the basement. And it was like, I would have 3 minutes in between shows where I would try to scarf some lunch, if I even got to eat. And so it was quite chaos, I mean, to say the least. And it doesn't have to be that way, but it did make me perfect our systems and perfect, being able to have an interview with somebody that you just met and still have a decent conversation. And I don't claim to be able to do it, well every time, but it does make you get better at things when you think differently, right? And it's made me think differently about lots of things. And so everybody I talked to about podcasting before I started a podcast said, oh, it's so much work. It's so much work, right? And they were all doing a weekly show. And so it made me second guess myself a little bit. Is this crazy to do a daily show, right? But I had to think different about my processes, about our people, and about hiring and doing these things. I've never edited the first piece of audio or video personally. I've never written the first piece of show notes. I've never posted the first show on social media. But if I was doing a weekly show, I would have tried to have done all those things. right? I know that. Like, I can save the money, I'll figure it out. Let's just keep it going. But I would have gotten behind, and I bet I would have quit. Like, I wouldn't have been able to keep up, right? But knowing, I call it overcommitting. By overcommitting, I knew I had to build a team. I knew I had to hire people. It made me think differently. And so it's allowed me then to apply that to other things. There's a book that Dan Sullivan just came out. I've not got to read it yet, but I love the title. And it says 10x is easier than 2x. And that's pretty much what we did, right? And it didn't make it easier, I wouldn't say. However, it did make me think differently, right? So we can go make it happen.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense because I have a weekly show and I do the show notes and I do the I guess the social media posting and I do everything except I would have quit if I had to do the video. I cannot stand editing video. But so that's the one task that I've offloaded, and that's been what's allowed me to be consistent every week for over a year. But I guess the way I see it, I get a lot of value from writing the show notes too, because it's like to talk is something that's a little more natural and easy, but to be able to succinctly put your thoughts into I'd like to say a punchy, write up is definitely something that is a good skill to have that I've been, privileged to have the opportunity to build over the course of the podcast. Not to mention, just when I first started, it was very scripted, and now I can just have conversations with people, which is a skill that goes beyond podcasting. But I've definitely gotten to hone from podcasting. So I guess I kind of want to, the lessons that I haven't learned that you have from podcasting is the scalability and the systems aspect. So I guess, can you tell me a little bit more about your systems and then how the lessons you learned from the systems you've been able to build have been able to, it seems like you've transferred those lessons also to the rest of your business. So I'm curious, like, where are systems, strong in your business environment?
Yeah, that's the systems, I would say, kind of morphed into bigger things, right? As we grew and as the business grew as well. Initially, it was something as simple as having what we call a master podcast sheet. And if you can imagine this master podcast sheet, down the first thing, maybe the show number, then the date, and then the guest name, and then, and then out from there, if you can imagine everybody on the team, we color coded it, right? It's based on what the audio editor, or we just created the process. Who needs to do what first, right? And in what order? And so let's say it's audio editing. Well, is the audio edited? Is the video edited? Is the, show notes done? And, we just kept going out through there. And then we added stuff in like, the artwork or the, are there ads that need to be put in, or, all these different things that have to be accounted for. And then as we're doing that for other people, well, what's the cost? Who's paid? What invoice? I mean, like, it keeps going and going. But then over time, we've incorporated things like Asana, right? We use Asana now for all of that. We still track that stuff on that same master podcast sheet, but we still use that. We use things like Asana now. So all those things are in Asana. So as soon as something is checked out, well, it notifies the next person, right? So it helps us to be more efficient. And so they know as soon as this thing is done that they're waiting on, well, they can, they know when they can move forward, right? Because it notifies them when it's kind of their turn in the process. And then it also helps whoever's managing that to see where each thing is at in the process as well, right? And that's just for the podcast. But even, further back from that, it was building that team, right? And that helped me to scale and finding people that could help manage the show, help me find people that can help find guests, right? Quality guests. And then it takes time. And let's say finding guests, for example. Well, this person doesn't know exactly how to do that initially, right? But it's almost like hiring an assistant as well. It's like it takes some time and repetition, and eventually they know what I'm looking for, right? And that it's kind of a, it goes up and down a little bit, but it takes time, right, to develop that system and process. So eventually I can pull out more and more and more of me personally, and empower, right, these people to do that stuff for me, right? And so even like you're talking about video editing, I've never edited the first piece of video, would not have a clue on how to do it. However, I might look at it and say, wait a minute, guys, this does not look good. Or how about if we tried this? Or can we do something like this? Or show them an example, right, of something that I've seen that I really liked, right? And so it's helping lead them, but still leaning on their expertise as the video expert, right, or editor. And so, but I apply that, over in LifeBridge Capital as well in other ways, right? Well, I hire those people because they're the expert for whatever reason I'm hiring them. If I may have been doing some of that before they got hired, but it better be 10 times better because they're doing it, right? And that's why I hired them, because they're the expert. I'm still going to ask questions. I'm going to push them in a certain direction, right? I know the goal. I can see the vision of where we're trying to go, and I need them, right, to use their expertise to help me to get there. I may not even know everything that I need to ask them, but that's what, I need them to be there and bring them their expertise to the team while I'm keeping focused on the goal of where we're trying to go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. And it reminds me of the book, the E-Myth, where you create a system, a structure, an organization structure of your business. At the beginning, you're filling every single part of it, or a lot of different parts of it. But then as you grow your team, you can replace yourself into these different parts of the structure and eventually replace yourself as the operator and just, and it's a pretty powerful way of thinking about it. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I appreciate you sharing. And I guess, before we get into the lightning round, I want to bring us back to real estate briefly, but I guess where are you investing in? I guess what is your outlook on the market nowadays, and kind of where you're seeing opportunity?
Yeah, so we have properties all over the West and growing into the Midwest, right? Colorado, Idaho, Texas, and now Kansas City. As far as where the market's going, man, it's a big question, right? We all want to know. I think, for us, just from my conversations with so many operators over the last even 6 months, I think raising money is harder now than it's been in a long time, right? And I think we've experienced that to some degree, or harder than it has been. We still raise a lot, but still, it's taken, I would say, a little more hand holding than it has in the past, right? And so I think there's a lot of fear, in the market right now across investors, and so something that we are trying to improve on, and I think everybody and we just always need to be improving on this, but is educating our investors, right? What is happening right now? What do we see? Even if we don't know exactly what's going to happen 6 months from now, and I would just say, and nobody does, right? We always, we look at the past, we see what's happened, we look at what's happening now, we make our best assumptions, right? And that's a big part of this business, right? Is pulling all this data together and say, okay, this is the way things work. This is what's happened in the past. This is probably what's going to happen. And so all that to say, we expect issues, right? Not personally, and maybe that, but I just mean mostly, we expect deals to be had, in the next 6, 8, 10 months. I know there's going to be deals that have to be refied that people can't get debt on, right? That the properties can't afford and things like that. So I know that. I know that, people were underwriting deals two years ago and getting, let's say, a bridge debt. There's going to be many of them that we're counting on debt being as expensive as it is now, right? And it's so unfortunate, right, for them. But there are going to be deals like that to be had for those who are ready, right? And so I think we are being patient as I feel like we can be. We bought one deal last year. Which, as opposed to buying, say, 4 or 5 deals a year, the few years before. But in the moment, we were kind of discouraged about it, right? Man, why aren't we buying anything or finding anything? But looking back now, I'm so thankful, right? That we didn't, and that we stuck to what we knew we should, to our guns, right? This is what makes the deal work for us, and that we were okay with saying, no, that doesn't work, right? And moving on, and not being pressured into doing deals, maybe just because it looks like everybody else around us is doing deals, right? And so I'm thankful looking back just at the wisdom of our team, really, not just Sam, my business partner, and I, but of our whole team, right? And just a collaboration of experts that the Lord has provided. But yeah, so we expect there to be deals to be had, in the next, say, 6, 8, 10 months. But we are being patient. We do have a project now, that we're in the process of buying, but there were some key things that happened that made that deal really work for us. And more than one thing, that made it work. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it, right? And so we believe in being patient and waiting till it makes sense.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like you definitely have the right mentality for the whatever's going on in the market. So yeah, I wish you the best of luck. And I think that you probably are very right in terms of the kinds of debt that people took on before, and the necessity for refining, or the need for cash in refis that might not be able to be done. You might be able to ease some of the difficulty by buying these deals, and obviously that would be at a different price than it was given where debt is. So yeah, makes a lot of sense. Are you ready for lightning round?
Let's do it.
All right. So if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
To know the future. That could be a curse too.
It could be. Yeah. No, that I thought that was supposed to be easy question, but it's definitely seemed to be the hardest. So what is your favorite book, or what's the one that's helped you the most?
The Bible by far, to say the least. If we have to say a business book, I would say the one I recommend, there's so many that I recommend, but one that I probably have said the most is The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham.
Awesome. I haven't read that one, but I'll check it out. I think we've touched on this, but what motivates you to continue every day?
Yeah, our mission, to say the least. I mean, it affects our family in a big way, right? And helping more families, to bring children home and to their forever family.
Great. And what advice would you give to someone who wants to follow in your footsteps?
Man, start early, right? Start early and mentor. And mentor with somebody that's where you want to be, right? 10 years ahead of you. And be willing to do it for free to make it happen. Even if it means working at McDonald's during the day or at night, so you can work with this person for free during the day. Man, go do it and make it happen. And I just see so many that are not willing to, let's say, self-educate, or they're not willing to work for free early on, or just to get the experience out of almost I don't know, what's the word? They feel like they're worth more than that, right? And I just say, you know what? When you're getting started, man, go. You have no idea the value that somebody that's 10 years ahead of you can add to you, right? So go figure out who that person is and try to add value to them.
Absolutely. And lastly, since I put you on the spot, I want to give you a chance for revenge. So what's one question you'd have for me?
What's your biggest struggle in your real estate business right now?
What's my biggest struggle in my real estate business? I guess to step it out, I guess what's my biggest struggle is just trying to trying to stay composed, or I guess I guess my big struggle would be to just absorb the uncertainty and relish in the uncertainty that's kind of overwhelming. That I'm graduating from college in less than a month and don't know exactly where I'm going to be geographically, what I'm going to be doing. I know what I want to be doing and I guess where I want to go in the future, but just the uncertainty in the path is something that is a struggle to it's just a struggle in having that uncertainty looming over myself. But definitely kind of putting into context and being confident in who I am and knowing that it's all going to work out, that I have the mindset, the skills, and the support to be able to accomplish my dreams, and I'm willing to work hard, and that it's just a matter of time. And so yeah, but definitely a lot of uncertainty.
Have you reverse engineered it all? Like thought about, okay, 5 years from now, this is where I want to be, and this is, or 10 years, and we're down to a year and 6 months, and figuring out, okay, what do I need to be doing 6 months from now to get to where I want to be 5 years from now?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I know that I'm going to be I'm going to find a mentor, right? I'm going to be working with someone who can teach me. I'm trying to find the right person that I could, provide a lot of value just with my willingness to work hard and learn, and maybe, and that, hopefully I could be an asset, but that, looking for someone where I can continue to learn a lot about real estate and get my hands dirty and, build the skills that are going to take me to where I want to go. And so, yeah, definitely the next step is finding someone who I can continue to grow with.
I could ask you a lot more questions if you want. I would love to dive in.
Yeah, I mean, depends on your time, but yeah, that's kind of how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. What skill sets do you have? What do you love to do in this business? There's so many different things in the syndication space for commercial real estate, right? There's so many different people on our team who have different skill sets and different expertise. which part of that do you gravitate towards?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess I'm definitely strong in Excel and in modeling. Here's my this is my mouse pad. It's Excel shortcut guide.
Nice.
But yeah, I can do most operations without the mouse. And so that's definitely a skill, and I find that problem solving aspect to be really exciting and interesting. But I mean, another thing I love about real estate is I love to talk to people, and I love to connect with people, whether it's brokers or partners, anyone in the industry that that's definitely in terms of it's a skill, it's a that soft skill, especially having built it up over the podcast. It's been helpful to be able to connect with people and talk to people, and that's something that I enjoy doing. And so that's another skill that I would definitely bring to the table. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. As far as being an expert in Excel, there's so many ways to use that program, right? But obviously, one way in our business, man, if you can become an expert in underwriting or analyzing deals, people need your help, right? And it's going to be easy for you to find partners who are good at raising money, right, or good at finding deals, but they need your skill set on underwriting. So I usually tell people, like, if you're going to get started, man, be that expert on that thing, right? And maybe it's raising money, maybe it's underwriting, maybe it's sourcing deals. But man, when you can do any of those things one of those things really well, and you go do some networking, you're going to find other people that can do the other two things or three things or whatever it may be, however many ways you want to slice this business up. But becoming an expert in that thing, like, and more you talk about it on your podcast, or you start putting out blogs about, underwriting or how to use Excel, and like, people are going to start seeing you as the underwriting expert. And when they need help, they're going to think, oh, I think Ben could do this, right? And you're going to start finding partners, and before you know it, you're doing a deal together, right? Because and not because you knew how to do every part of due diligence, right? Or not because you knew how to find a great deal, but maybe because you were the guy who underwrote it and said, no, this is a great deal. And I can see it, right? And this is why. And so that's a very good skill set to have. I wish I was better at underwriting deals, but I mean, the more that expertise grew on our team, the more I pulled out of that, right? And I still have to know about it, but it's not it was never my superpower, right? Excel by any means. But I did have to find, my business partner is an expert in Excel, in underwriting. Then we've hired another acquisitions director now who's better than he ever thought about being, right? So, but when you have a skill set like that, it's going to be very valuable and help you to move faster than trying to be, say, a jack of all trades, right? In our space.
Yeah, absolutely, though. I appreciate that. And I definitely want to build a understanding of the the operations and the other aspects of
right.
the and so yeah, that's kind of where I am in terms of I want to because in terms of scalability, that I want to get better at the skills that are not time restricted, and so that's something that I'm learning to build right now. But I guess it gives me the Excel aspect and the underwriting aspect gives me the confidence to know that when I find a good deal that I know that I won't be missing anything from the cash flow potential perspective, that I know at least like what we're looking at this deal and like, yeah, things can go wrong in operations, but that this is the good deal on paper, and that's a confidence that
sure
be good at having going forward. So yeah, awesome. Well, appreciate you diving in. Definitely gonna ruminate on that and see how I can leverage that into partnerships and whatnot going forward. But it's been a pleasure to have you on the show, Whitney. Where can people find out more about what you got going on and learn more about what you're doing?
lifebridgecapital.com. They can email me at whitney@lifebridgecapital.com as well. Happy to connect or help anyone.
Awesome. Well, I want to give you the opportunity to have any final remarks.
No, honored to be here, Ben. A great job producing, or hosting the show, and like I said, happy to help anyone. I hope that they will reach out if we can help in any way, or anybody getting started too. I love having conversations, that guys and gals that are willing to push themselves, right? Like you're talking about. Not, most are not willing to work hard and go out and make it happen. And I did not come into this being a I would say a genius, or having really special skills, but just being willing to work as hard as anybody else went a long way.
Awesome. Well, appreciate that. Whitney and everyone listening, keep making milestones.
Before you go, I just wanted to say thanks again for tuning in to another awesome episode of Real Estate Milestones. If you've been enjoying the show and you'd like to offer your support, please leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It's the best way to increase the show's visibility and help the message get out to a greater audience. I really appreciate your time and support, and keep making milestones.
The information provided on this podcast is intended to be educational and informational only and is not considered to be formal legal advice. The listener should not take or refrain from taking action based on its content. Any listener in need of legal opinion upon which to rely in decision-making should consider formally engaging an attorney to review relevant facts in detail and examine the pertinent law as it applies to those facts.